This Autodesk Fusion tutorial is part of a series of learning how to 3D model in Autodesk Fusion using lessons and plates from a mechanical drawing textbook. In this plate, it shows how to make a nail box. In the instructions on a separate page, it mentions that all material is 3/8 of an inch thick. So we can use a user parameter in Autodesk Fusion to make our work a lot easier. Inside Fusion, we're going to work in the hybrid design workspace. If you don't see hybrid design, it might say part or assembly. Just click this pencil and then you can choose hybrid. Rule number 1 in Fusion is to create a component. At the top level component, that's this unsaved section here, right click, new component. We'll label this component base, then select OK. We need to create a sketch. Select create sketch, then we'll select the ground plane right here. In Fusion, you can select create, rectangle, center rectangle. That way, all I have to do is click the origin, and then I can type 3.25 IN tab 7.75 IN, enter. And everything is already fully constrained. If I twirl this out and look at sketches, you can see my sketch is fully constrained. I can finish the sketch. Then under the Modify menu, select Change Parameters. Click the plus button and then type thick. Instead of millimeters, we'll use inches since this is an old textbook, and we'll type 3/8. This is a value of 0.375, but you can use a fraction as well. Select OK. Then press E to extrude. And instead of typing in the value, we'll type in thick. Now we have our base. Let's create the sides. Activate the top level component, right-click the top level component, and select New Component. Label this component Side, and select OK. We need to create a sketch. We could create the sketch on top of the base or on an offset plane. I'm going to create an offset plane. Select the origin, click and hold, and then you get a menu. The offset will be thick. We can hide the original base just so we don't get confused. Create a sketch right on this offset plane. We can bring back base and then press P. This is the projection in Fusion. We can use the selection filter of entities and just select this entire face and press OK. Now, if we press R, I can click this corner and then over on this edge. Press D and just click these two lines and the distance will be thick. We've already set that user parameter up, so we don't need to do it again. Now I'm going to draw the cutouts for our boards in the nail box. Press R to draw rectangles. So now I've drawn 3 rectangles. I can use the equal constraint to make each of these rectangles equal. Then press D and dimension one of the rectangles thick. This rectangle here is centered, so we can use the midpoint constraint. Hover until you see the shorter line, then click this line, and now it's constrained on the midpoint. Looking at the mechanical drawing sketch, we can see that these go in 1/8 of an inch, and they're 3/8 of an inch from the side. We can dimension this 0.125 IN. Click this line, and this will dimension from the side, and it's the same as thick. We can use the collinear constraint to click this line and this line. That way we don't have to type in another dimension. We can also use the collinear constraint for this line and this line. And then finally press D, select this line, and the distance will be thick. This one still is not equal, so I'll click this one and this one. Now our sketch is fully constrained and we can extrude. Press E to extrude and select this profile. But how far do we extrude? Looking at the mechanical drawing sketch, they expect you to realize that this distance is 3/8, but the total distance is 1 3/4. So you need to subtract 3/8 from 1 3/4. So in the distance, we can type 1.75 IN minus thick. That way it goes up the right amount based on the dimensions in the sketch. Click OK. Now go back up to the top level component. When you're working in Fusion, the default is satin steel. It can be a bit confusing. So if I click Inspect, Display Component Colors, I can see the different component colors of my model. This is easier to tell different parts apart. Make sure that the top level is activated, then select Create, Mirror. Instead of bodies, we want to mirror components. Which component? Side 1. What mirror plane? The middle mirror plane. Then select OK. Automatically, we have our new side on the other side. Now we just need the dividers for our nail box. Right-click at the top level component in Fusion, select New Component. label this component divider, and we need to create a sketch. We could create a sketch on an offset plane, just like we did before, by clicking offset plane. Orbit around so you can see the origin. Click and hold, then select the origin. The offset will be thick, and we can create a sketch right on that plane. Select Create Sketch, then just make sure you select that plane. We can use P to project, and once again, we just need to select the top face and this top face and say OK. Press R for the rectangle tool, click this top rectangle point, and then this point here. Everything is done. Finish sketch. We're ready to press E for extrude. Once you select E, click this profile, and now how far? We could do that same math trick again, but we could also change our extent type to object. I think it would be better in this case to do the math, but I want to show you a new thing you can do in Fusion. Click this top face, and now it goes all the way up to there, and I say OK. We could repeat the same process for these other dividers, but there's a faster way. Activate the top level component, then we're going to select rectangular pattern. It defaults to bodies, but we'll select components. Select divider, and then for the axes, we'll select this red axis right here. Drag the arrow tool, and when you're making a pattern, you have two choices. You can go extent or spacing. In this case, we're going to do extent, and we'll use some math. We know the entire length is 7.75 in. This goes too far, so we need to subtract 1, 2, 3 thicknesses. So we minus thick times 3. Now everything is lined up perfectly. Select OK. Now we have all the components for our nail box modeled in Autodesk Fusion. We've also learned how to use patterning tools, user parameters, and the mirror command. We also learned about cycling component colors to make it easier to see what we are modeling. Of course, we could also model this in the part and assembly workflow, but for a simple design like this, and especially something you might be iterating on or ideating on, the hybrid workflow in Fusion is still a very powerful workflow to make new designs and 3D models. And remember, you can always switch to new design workflows. Happy 3D modeling!